Have you ever met someone whose presence did not simply enter your life, but rearranged it? The kind of encounter that makes you pause, that stirs something ancient inside you. Not desire, not conquest, but recognition. The kind that whispers, "You have met yourself through another." Before we dive in, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to see how far this conversation is reaching. There are men who walk through life untouched, confident in their armor of control and reason. But then one day they meet a certain kind of woman, and everything they thought they knew about themselves begins to tremble. She does not demand attention. She does not chase. Her silence speaks more than his words ever could. Her presence mirrors what he has buried, the tenderness, the longing, the forgotten parts of his soul. At first he cannot explain it. He only feels it, a pull that both fascinates and terrifies him. Around her, logic fails. The rhythm of his mind no longer feels like enough. She disarms him without effort. Her gaze pierces through the masks he has spent years perfecting, the ones built from discipline, pride, and quiet fear. For the first time, he senses that perhaps strength is not control. Perhaps it is surrender. In Jung's language, she is not merely a woman. She is the anima, the spirit of the inner feminine within every man, the unseen river beneath his intellect, the feeling he has long ignored. And through her, something inside him begins to awaken. His emotions start to whisper truths that logic could never hold. Yet he resists, as most men do, because to meet the feminine within himself feels like a threat, a challenge to everything he has been taught about manhood. He begins to project this awakening onto her. He tells himself he is in love, but what he is truly drawn to are the forgotten pieces of himself reflected in her eyes. That is why he cannot stop thinking about her, because she becomes the mirror of his own depth. And if you are that woman, you feel it too, do you not? You feel how the air shifts when he is near, how his energy flickers between strength and vulnerability. One moment he reaches for you, the next he withdraws. Not out of cruelty, but confusion. He is being called to face himself through you, and he does not yet know how. When he meets his inner feminine through your presence, you become both catalyst and mirror. You stir what has been sleeping. His empathy, his emotional truth, his longing to love without control. But such awakenings are rarely peaceful. They are chaotic, raw, almost sacred in their violence, because to meet the feminine within is to face every wound that rejected her. Every time he was told not to cry, every moment he learned to equate softness with weakness. Your energy does not let him hide anymore. You invite him into vulnerability, and that terrifies him more than war. But hear this clearly, you are not his healer. You are his signal, not his solution. The moment you try to fix him, he will unconsciously pull away. For a man cannot be transformed by a woman's effort, only by her embodiment. The woman who truly changes him does so not by trying to save him, but by standing fully in her own wholeness. You are not the moon reflecting his confusion. You are the sun that he must learn to orbit, and yet holding that power requires your own shadow work. If you attach your worth to his awakening, you lose your center. You forget that your purpose was never to complete him. It was to remind him of his own completeness. When you stand in your truth, when you radiate without needing to be seen, you teach him without a single word. You show him what balance feels like. And though he may resist, retreat, even blame you for the storm within him, know this, you have already done your part. Because the feminine that mirrors truth will always shake the foundations of falsehood. For him, this process feels like being broken open. Everything he thought he understood about love, power, and strength begins to dissolve. He starts to realize that being a man is not about dominance, but about consciousness. That emotion is not weakness, but depth. That love is not possession, but reflection. Yet this is his journey to walk. You may have lit the torch, but he must travel the path alone. And if you truly understand your own power, you will not chase him into his darkness. You will wait in stillness, not from need, but from knowing. Because when a man meets his soul through you, it is not the beginning of your story, it is the beginning of his. He will wander through the corridors of his own mind, haunted by your memory. Every word you spoke will echo differently, no longer as comfort but as revelation. He will start to see traces of you everywhere, in the quiet rain, in the laughter of strangers, in the tender spaces he once ignored. It will dawn on him that what he lost was never just you, but the part of himself that you reflected. This realization humbles him. For the ego hates what it cannot possess. The masculine seeks to define, to conquer, to control, but the feminine cannot be caged. She exists to teach him the art of being, to help him feel, surrender, and trust. You become the storm that teaches him stillness, the mirror that reveals his truth, and in losing you he begins to meet himself. Not the man the world applauds, but the man who aches to be whole. He remembers your gaze, the way it made his defenses crumble, the way your silence spoke of truths he was not ready to face. You never demanded that he change. You simply existed in your authenticity, and that authenticity made his pretenses unbearable. You were never sent to soothe him. You were sent to awaken him. But that awakening tests you too, because when he begins to evolve, he may pull away. He may vanish into the solitude required to rebuild his soul, and you will feel the ache, the urge to chase, to prove that love was not wasted. Do not. For the feminine that chases abandons her divinity. The woman who truly embodies her power knows when to love fiercely and when to retreat with grace. He cannot become conscious through your nurturing. He can only rise through your neutrality. The truly empowered feminine is not a caretaker of broken men. She is the spark that calls them to rise. When you hold your center, he feels your absence like withdrawal from an old illusion. For the first time, he must face his emotions without leaning on your light. That is where his real transformation begins. As he grows, he starts to speak differently. His words soften, his actions become deliberate. He listens more, not to respond, but to understand. He begins to see his emotions not as enemies, but as guides. In your absence, he learns to nurture his own wounds, to embrace his inner child, to forgive his past. And in this sacred evolution, something miraculous occurs. The man who once projected his pain outward now turns inward for healing. He no longer seeks women to complete him, but to complement him. He no longer fears the feminine. He honors it because he has found it within. If fate ever brings you together again, the air will feel different. No more tension, no more projection, only calm recognition. You will both know that the connection was never about possession. It was about transformation. You were not his ending. You were his mirror, his initiation, his awakening. But as he rises, so must you. For the woman who awakens, a man cannot remain where she began. You too are changing. You are learning to love without losing yourself, to give without emptying, to stand in tenderness without abandoning strength. You are remembering that your softness is not weakness, but alchemy, that your empathy is not submission, but mastery. You begin to feel lighter. The people you attract now reflect your wholeness, not your wounds. You stop needing to be chosen, because you have already chosen yourself. You stop waiting to be understood, because you finally understand your own worth. You are no longer the muse who inspired his awakening. You are the flame that sustains your own, and though he may remember you, perhaps in quiet moments, in fragments of dreams, in the stillness between achievements, he will never see you the same way again. Because once a man meets the feminine within himself through you, he cannot return to who he was. He walks through life differently now, more grounded, more tender, more real. He listens to the voice he once silenced, the voice of intuition, of empathy, of reverence. It no longer frightens him. It feels like home. That is what you gave him. Not comfort, but clarity. Not attachment, but awakening. And in return, he gave you the same gift in disguise, the chance to see your own reflection through his struggle, your own strength through his unraveling. The sacred feminine does not stay to be worshipped. She appears, she awakens, and she releases. Her love is not the kind that binds, but the kind that frees. You were the mirror. You were the lesson. You were the spark that lit his becoming, and though both of you now walk separate paths, you remain connected, not through need, but through knowing. Through the invisible resonance of two souls who met not to hold each other, but to awaken each other, because once a man meets a woman who reflects his soul, he is never the same again. He begins to live differently, to love differently, to see differently, and somewhere deep in his spirit, he carries the imprint of the woman who showed him what it means to feel alive. If this story moved something within you, take a moment to breathe, reflect, and if it spoke to your heart, share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Perhaps they too are standing at the edge of awakening, waiting for a mirror to remind them who they truly are.